Imagine being found naked, bound, and hanging from a balcony. And not just a balcony from a normal house, a balcony from a luxury mansion. Today we open Rebecca Zahau's file. When she was found, the police say it was a suicide, but when you look closer, nothing about it makes sense. Okay, this case is not just disturbing, it is very confusing. The more you hear, the less it adds up. This is the story of Rebecca Zahau, a woman whose death still leaves people asking questions. So let's get straight into the mystery. So Rebecca was 32 years. She was living in a mansion in California with her boyfriend, which was a very wealthy businessman. Now, on the outside, as usual, everything looked calm on the surface, but then something happened in that house. Days before she died, her boyfriend's young son had a serious accident. He fell down from the stairs and was left in very critical condition. And at the time, Rebecca was the only adult in the house. Already, there was tension, pressure, questions. People kept wondering what exactly happened. Then, just 2 days later, Rebecca herself was found dead. And not just dead, but in a way that shocked everyone. She was discovered hanging from a balcony, completely naked, with her hands and feet bound. That means they tied her hands and feet. Wait, let's take a pause for a minute, because that alone raises serious questions, and I'm sure you have the questions in your mind. Because how does someone tie themselves up and even hang themselves? It's not that simple, or it's not even possible when you start thinking about it. But that's not all. There was also a message written on the door nearby, and it said some lines of, "She saved him. Can you save her?" Very strange, very cryptic, and almost looking like it was staged. And that made people more uncomfortable, because it's now seeming like, anyways, it's not more seeming like a tragic death. It's looking like a scene. So police started investigating and looking at the evidences, and eventually they ruled it as a suicide. They said Rebecca had been under emotional stress, especially after the child's accident, and they said she might have taken down her own life. But the public and her family did not agree at all, because too many things just were not adding up. First, the bindings, who tied her hands. Expert and independent investigators later tried to recreate it. They said it would be extremely difficult to do all of that alone. Second, there were no clear signs of a struggle, but also no clear explanation of how everything was done. Third, the message on the door. Who wrote the message? Why write something like that? Why in that moment would you write something like that? And then there was another key detail. At the time of her death, there was someone in the house, her boyfriend's brother. He said he was asleep and didn't know anything had happened. But people started questioning that too. How do you sleep through something like that? How do you not hear anything? Again, no clear answers. The case went back and forth, investigations, lawsuits, different opinion. At one point, a civil jury actually ruled that her case was not a suicide, but a wrongful death, meaning they believe someone else was involved. But even with that, no one was everly criminally charged. Let that sink in. A case this strange, this detailed, this disturbing, and still no one held responsible. Years later, people are still debating it. Was Rebecca overwhelmed? And did she do something that unthinkable? Or was there something much darker, made to look like something else? Because when you look at everything, the position of the body, the bindings, the message, the timing, it doesn't just feel straightforward. It feels constructed, planned. And that's what makes this case so unsettling, because it sits right in that space between explanations and doubt. So tell me, do you believe this was really suicide, or do you think someone else was involved in that mansion? Because honestly, this is one of the cases where the answer doesn't feel complete. So sad.